Hello, and welcome to another edition of The Legal Zone, where we tackle injustice. I know it's been a long time since we've been on. I'm not even going to get into all that we've been doing since our last episode because I want to use this hour for our guest who's here today, who I'm going to introduce in a little bit. But before I get to the guest, let me welcome our regulars. Mr. John Salati, how are you?
Hello, Mr. Phillips. I'm great and glad to be back.
Glad to have you back. And Dr. Cheney, are you there?
Yes, hello, how are you?
How are you doing this morning? Good to see you.
You too.
All right, let's jump right into it because, like I said, we have a lot to talk about today, and I want to utilize the time to the fullest. To our students, get your pens out because we're going to go fast. Is the right to parent constitutional? Is the right to parent a part of the Constitution? If it is, where can it be found? The answer to that is yes. I did the notes before, so I'm not going to be typing today to slow down. The answer to the question of whether the right to parent is constitutional is yes. And where is it found? The Due Process Clause of the 14th Amendment. Remember that. The right to parent is a fundamental right. Now, that's different than a non-fundamental right. We're going to get into that briefly, but the right to parent is a fundamental right. So what does it mean? It means that the state, and remember everyone that the Constitution only governs the government and the states. It does not govern individuals, with a few exceptions. It means that the state cannot interfere in the parent-child relationship without a compelling justification. It has to be something very serious for the state to interfere with your right to free speech, your right to religion, your right to travel, all of these fundamental rights. The right to parent is right up there with those. There is a Parental Rights Act of 1995. That's all about parental rights. We had a show with Anthony Dennison a while back, and I know he's watching. This touches and concerns your case as well. A Parental Rights Act. Let me just briefly show you what Congress was talking about when this came up. They had to do where is it? Here it is. They had to make this a law because of this. Look at this. This is the bill in the United States Senate, 1995. Look at what they say here. I just had it. They talk about the purpose. Taking too much time. See, this is what happens when you strict scrutiny. You have to forgive me, everyone. My eyes are not as strong today because I had surgery the other day. Oh, here it is. Look here. Some decisions of federal and state courts have treated the right of parents not as a fundamental right, but as a non-fundamental right, resulting in an improper standard of judicial review being applied to government conduct that adversely affects parental rights and prerogatives. In other words, they're saying that the states and the government had not been treating parental rights as a fundamental right. And as a result, parents have been wrongfully losing their rights. This is Congress talking in 1995. So they made their own act that's supposed to protect parental rights. All right, let's go on. Terminating a parent's rights boils down to one of two factors. One, the parent does not want to be a parent. Two, the parent is incapable of parenting the child long term. For my exam takers, look at these words. Remember, every word counts. The parent is incapable of parenting the child long term. This is a tall order and can only be proven by clear and convincing evidence. That's the highly probable standard. All right, so here are the grounds or reasons for terminating a parent's rights. Write these down. One, severe or chronic abuse or neglect to the child. Two, sexual abuse. If a parent has been arrested, convicted of sexual abuse, it's a ground for terminating the parent's rights. Abandonment of the child. This usually has to be 12 consecutive months or more. Parents are just gone. Four, long-term mental illness of the parents, making the parent incapable of parenting the child. Again, long-term. Even with treatment and medication, the parent must be found incapable of raising the child. So if you come down with a mental illness, it doesn't automatically mean that's a ground. It's even if you're treated and medicated, you're still incapable, then it becomes a ground. Five, long-term alcohol or drug-induced incapacity of the parent. Again, long-term. And even with treatment and medication, the parent is incapable of raising the child. If there's treatment and medication that deals with these issues, then there's no grounds to terminate. Six, failure to support or maintain the contact with the child. That goes along with the abandonment, usually 12 consecutive months. Parent is gone, hadn't spoken, haven't provided money, hasn't done anything. It's a ground. Now get this, 35 states and the District of Columbia provide for exceptions to terminating a parental right, a parent's rights. Remember, a parent's right is fundamental to the Constitution. The child has been or can be placed under the care of a relative. I'm going to read that again. An exception to terminating a parent's rights. That means if there's a factor, even if a parent falls under one or more of these, and there's a factor, if a child has been or can be placed under the care of any relative of the parent, they won't terminate. Maryland happens to be one of these 35 states. Another exception, the state agency has determined that it's not in the best interest to terminate the parent's right. But wait a minute, I thought it was the state who brings these petitions to terminate a parent's right. It is, but guess what? Someone else can too. The other parent, a grandparent, an aunt could try to terminate a parent's right by saying this parent falls under one of these categories. Well, if it's determined that they fall under one of the categories, the state can step in and say, yeah, but we still think that it's not in the best interest, and they can stop it. The third exception, the state agency has not provided the parent with the services required by the service plan. There always has to be a service plan before a parent's right is terminated. So if the state has not provided that parent with the required services for reunification, they cannot terminate. In other words, a parent's right cannot be terminated if the state has not provided the parent with the necessary services that could help the parent get to the point of parenting the child again. Now, with all of these factors, all of these safeguards against this protected fundamental right, you would think that it would be very difficult for the state to terminate a parent's rights. It's mind-boggling to think of a situation that could happen where a parent's rights could be terminated. With that, I would like to introduce our two very lovely guests. We have Jennifer Lubin and her mother, Linda Lubin. Hello, ladies.
Well, hello.
Now, since you share the same last name, is it okay if I call you Jennifer and Linda?
Okay, that's fine.
All right. All righty. So, Jennifer, I want to start with you. Where are you from?
I'm from Only, Maryland.
Only Maryland, and that's where you live now,
I'm currently living in Rockville, Maryland.
Rockville. And you had two children, you have two children. You
I
birthed two
have-
children.
I birthed two children.
And what are their names and how old are they?
My daughter Riley is 6, and my son Austin is 3.
Okay. Now, tell us, you have a case that was just recently filed, a petition, but let's go back and give us some history about your children and your situation and what's happened.
My children were taken from me in October of 2019. They were given to my mother. She had them until March of 2020. The court then decided to take them from her, and they were placed in their first foster home. And about a year after that, they were placed in their second foster home, which they are currently residing.
Okay, so let's go back. You said that they were taken from you. Why?
They were taken from me because I was under the influence of drugs.
Okay, were you ordered by the court to get treatment for this?
I was.
And did you do the treatment?
I did.
Did you complete the treatment?
I did.
And how old were your children again?
My daughter is 6 and my son is 3.
Okay, so did you ever have a hearing?
I had a few hearings.
And you had an attorney representing you?
I did.
Do you remember what the ultimate reason was? We went over those factors. Do you remember what the ultimate reason was they told you as to why they were taking your kids from you?
They took my kids because of my drug use and also mental health.
And that's the reason that they gave you?
Yes.
Now, they took them, but did they ever terminate your rights as a parent?
They did.
And is that the reasons why they told you? Because mental health and drug use?
From my understanding, they thought because of my history and my age that there was a good chance that I would never be a fit parent.
Okay, so we just read what the law is. Now your mother is with you. They took the kids from you and placed them in the care of your mother. Is that right?
That's correct.
Okay, Linda, let me turn to you now. Were the kids, obviously, your daughter just said they were with you. What happened?
I have the little girl for 18 months, and then they went back to Jennifer for a few months, and then there was a relapse in there, and she had a little boy, so I took both of them, and I had them for, I guess, 6 months, and the court decided to take them away from me.
Why?
Reasons are unknown.
Oh, wait. You said the court decided to. Now, the court is just supposed to be a trier of fact. So who was it that made the accusation, assuming that it was an accusation that you shouldn't have the kids?
The judge, the circuit court judge.
Well, who brought it to the judge?
Probably CPS.
Okay, so CPS is an agent of the state. So, and what state is this again?
Maryland.
Maryland. So some agency in Maryland made the decision to take the kids from you, right?
It was most likely CPS bringing it before the court that they felt I should not be taking care of them.
And what reason did they give?
The only thing that I can think of, which they would never admit, is age discrimination, because I was 76 at the time. And then they had these ridiculous accusations of me giving the little girl a bag of Cheerios that she was walking around the house with, that I was parentifying Riley by asking her to bring me a diaper. The little boy in his bouncer, that I'd leave him sit in the bouncer for hours at a time. Diapers were wet. They only come in the house once a week for an hour, and how they can make accusations is unreal.
So the accusations that they make, if we went back to these factors, did they accuse you of being chronically abusive?
No, I was a loving grandmother. My
Did they?
my
Well,
granddaughter adored me.
let's see if if the accusations against you could fall under any of these. Did they accuse you of sexually abusing any of the kids?
No,
Abandoning them?
no,
Do you have any long-term mental illness that makes you incapable of raising children?
none at all.
Were you using any long-term alcohol or drugs?
Never have.
And I guess you didn't fail to support the kids because they were with you.
Right.
So, but still, after a hearing, it was adjudicated that you were unfit to take care of your own grandchildren?
I don't even know if they put that title on it. The judge just said that, told CPS that they were to be removed from my house.
Wow. So now, Jennifer, you said that your mother said there was a relapse. What happened after the relapse?
After the relapse, I went into a 28-day program. And from there, I went to a long-term program for mothers and children.
And did you complete that program?
I did.
When did the hearing come about for your rights, the parental rights hearing? When was that?
Well, that I had actually gone to a second program for mothers and children. And as soon as I got to that program, that's when the goal was changed from reunification to adoption guardianship. And that was in, I'd say, March or April of 2021. And then the termination was in October, I believe, of 2021. And that's when my rights were terminated.
So what I'm hearing you say is the court was ordering you to take care of certain things, putting you in treatment, as we just read. And while that was going on, it sounds as though plans were being made to terminate your rights regardless.
Yep.
Now, based on the law, the parents of the parent, grandparents, or any other relative is next in line. Who are the kids with now?
They are with what I've been told is considered fictive kin.
Okay, so fictive kin, so all our listeners could know, fictive kin by law is people who are not blood relatives, but who have formed some sort of emotional bond to children, so much so that the children would be comfortable moving in and living with them. Now, the people who was deemed to be fictive kins, can we know what are their names? Do you know?
Dr. Michelle Weeks and Mr. Michael Jacobs.
And they were deemed to be fictive kins?
According to child welfare, yes.
So they must have known you and your mom and these kids for a long time.
They did not.
Not for a long time?
Never.
Never.
I had never met either one of them, and neither
Linda,
had my
you
mother.
didn't know them?
No. Don't know. Never seen them. Never heard from them. Don't know who they are.
So wait a minute. So where did they come from?
They came from my sister-in-law in Florida. It's her boyfriend's daughter.
Your sister-in-law's boyfriend's daughter.
Right.
And so they stepped in, and that's where the kids are now.
Yes.
All right, well, talk to us about and John's going to talk more about this legal aspect, but so how often do you talk to your kids and seeing the kids, and what's going on with that now?
As of September, all communication has been cut off. Neither one of us get to talk or see our children and grandchildren.
And how old are they?
My daughter's 6 and my son is 3.
Now, I was able to read the court's opinion from one of the hearings, and they said that the facts were clear that the kids had an emotional bond with you. And now you're not even seeing, why aren't you seeing them or talking to them?
From my understanding is they cut all ties for the best interest of my children.
Wow. Dr. Cheney, let me get you in here really quick. And I have some more I want to get John into. Dr. Cheney.
Hello to you all, and I'm sorry for what you're going through.
Thank you.
Just so much. Did you have an attorney when you started out?
I did.
And who was that?
Miss Stewart Hamlin.
What kind of drugs were you addicted to?
I was addicted to heroin and cocaine.
To the mother? When you had the children, is there some kind of rule that you cannot allow them to go back to your daughter for visitation during the period that you have them? To the mother?
To me?
Either one, but I was talking to your mother.
Linda.
Oh, me, grandmother?
Yeah.
Grandmother. Okay.
Yeah, grandmother. Okay. What was the question?
When you had the children, does the government agency say that the children, excuse me, cannot go and stay with the mother during the period that you have them?
I was supposed to be the sole custody, and at some point along the way, she was not to be seeing the kids unless, I guess, CPS was there at the visit.
So there was a violation?
Not really. There was no
Because
violation.
I thought that, give the names. I thought that the mother of the children had the children at a certain point. When you had visitation rights, the mother actually was able to have the children stay with her for a while. No?
No.
No.
Yeah, no, I don't think that was it. I think when Linda, the grandmother, had them, she was essentially the parent.
Right.
And Jennifer could only see them if CPS was there.
That's
Correct.
Oh.
And they never accused you of violating that, did they?
No.
So yeah, what makes this crazy is that Jennifer's rights was not terminated at that point. They just placed her children in the care of the grandmother. So the grandmother actually became the parent with rights. And by law, the only way that they could have taken them from the grandmother is if she fell under one of those factors that I just brought up. But they never even said that she was any of those things.
Well, to the grandmother, do you think there's something suspicious going on that you would like to talk about?
Uh-oh.
Something suspicious. I just feel that from the very beginning, Child Protective Services wanted to take them away from my daughter.
Why?
They did not think she would succeed and be able to rehabilitate herself. I was told by the very first social worker that came in, from the very beginning, she was starting to look for a foster family that would adopt the children.
How early was this?
When Riley first came to live with me.
And that was, she
Um,
was how
what was
old?
she then?
Riley and Austin,
No, just Riley,
what are you talking about?
March of 2020.
something like that. I think, like, I guess it was with both of them. It was with the both children that she said that. I can't keep the date straight. All I know is the very first social worker on this case, she made that comment when she came to see me on one of the visits. Her projection was Jennifer would not succeed.
She was
I think-
already negative before even giving her a chance.
Well,
you think
let's
that-
go with that. Let's go with that for a
Okay.
moment. Let's assume their understanding was, yeah, Jennifer's never going to make it. She's got this history, blah, blah, blah. But again, everything that Salon read before, the children's, Riley and Austin's family should have been the first people that they would be looking to then create a placement. So what is left to speculation then, considering that the children were with you, but yet they were already thinking of ways to remove them from you, is then what's left there on some level that they didn't trust you, even though they never seemed to make any specific accusation? But again, if they're looking for a third-party foster family, well, why? You already have a family relative where the children are placed, so that even if they're right about Jennifer, what's the deal? This should be settled, and yet it's not. So is there anything that comes to your mind about, yeah, what seemed to be the issue with looking for a third-party family?
I think they were very concerned at some point because of my husband who had Parkinson's. And he is now in assisted living, and he was in assisted living when I went to court to testify. And the children's lawyer even was very clear that he was not in the picture anymore. He should not be in the way of me taking care of the children. That, well, I think was one of the factors also, was my age, a husband who was sick. They did not take into account that I had 40-hour help. I had sitters in my house helping me, that I would not attempt to try to do all this myself.
And remember, everyone watching, that the right to parent is a fundamental right. It's protected by the Constitution. You could only have a compelling interest to interfere with this. This is not, we're not talking about puppies, people. We're not talking about some pets that say, okay, well, maybe they're better off at this house. We're talking about human beings. And unless they are either the parents and family members, they simply don't want it. Because let's just be honest, some grandparents don't even want their grandkids, right? So if Linda was saying, well, put them in foster care, I don't want them, that would have been one thing. She doesn't fall under not wanting, and she does not fall under incapable of taking care of them. Dr. Cheney, you had some more questions.
Get the names mixed up. So the mother, you have to forgive me because I'm getting the names mixed up.
Jennifer's on the
What are you
right.
feeling now about your children?
I miss them. I haven't seen them in person in almost 2 years. And the last time I saw them virtually was in September. And they're my world. I love my children, and not seeing them just breaks me. I don't know what's going on with them, and nobody will tell me when I ask. It's like pulling teeth to get an answer from child welfare.
Wow.
So you and constantly researching or trying to figure out a way to see if this government agency is doing what it's supposed to be doing, or perhaps they have some kind of hidden agenda. Have you ever thought about that or anything like that?
I'm from what it seems, it seems like they did not want me to have my children from day one.
So I don't want to put words in your mouth, but if they don't want you to have the children, they don't want your mother to have the children, then it seems that who would you think they want to have the children?
They, from my understanding, they want the fictive kin, the foster parents that have them now, to adopt both of my children.
And are they male and female?
The
Fictive kin?
yes,
Because I thought I heard two same names or
It
something.
was a Dr. Weeks, which was the mother.
the foster mother,
And who was the father?
Mr. Jacobs.
Jacobs.
Do you know anything about them at all? I know you said you hadn't met them or seen them, but their backgrounds or any of that?
I met them twice for the last 2 in-person visits that I had back almost 2 years ago. And the only information I know of them is from hearsay, because I haven't, we don't communicate. There's no communication between us and the fictive kin.
What was your gut feeling when you met them? What did you feel?
I felt hurt. I don't,
How old are they, roughly?
they're a little bit older than me. I believe they're in their 50s.
Have they had children before?
They do.
How old are the children?
They have an older daughter who I believe is in her last year of high school. And they have a son who I'm not quite sure of his exact age, but I think he's middle school aged.
I've got to ask this. Now, how do they come into the picture again? Is there some kind of organization where they're joining this organization and they looked at your children as an option for them to take? The mother, you wanted to say something? How do they get into the mix?
They were not even, as far as we know, they were not even interested in being a foster parent at all. It's CPS here in Maryland contacted them through, as I told you, my sister-in-law gave their name to CPS. Their children do not even want my grandchildren in that house.
What did they tell you that?
Again?
Wait, did they tell you that? How do you know that?
I know from the court documents where when my granddaughter was having horrible temper tantrums and she was knocking over the little boy's Legos, that is in the court document. And the foster parent explaining to their children that my granddaughter is like a feral animal in the jungle. It is stated in the court documents. That's the statement the foster father gave to his son.
About
But-
your granddaughter,
Both of his
right?
children. He told that to both of his children, that my daughter was not normal. And I was in court. This is what he testified during the termination of parental rights hearing.
So your daughter's acting out, not because of you all, but because of her experience that she's going through right now.
My daughter's behavior is hearsay. From my understanding and the reports, it all said that the foster parents tell child welfare and they tell my daughter's therapist of my daughter's behavior. But as far as I know, nobody except for the foster parents have seen her behavior the way they're describing.
Where's their father?
Their father is in recovery as well, and he is in a program called Drug Court. He's doing very well right now, and he wants his children in his life.
And he's the father to both children?
He is.
John,
It's, I mean, reading the documents in this case, it's just been hair raising in a lot of ways. And it raises so many questions. I mean, again, what did Salon open with? Again, we tackle injustice. So as we look at this from your perspective, either of you, where does the injustice lie from your perspective? Because I think that's what people need to hear. And also, I think what might be useful for the audience to know, Jennifer has been very open about saying, shall we say, how we got into this scenario, but we haven't heard all of what she's done to get out of this.
right. So that's why I wanted to give her an
Bringing them up to date. Why don't we start there? Jen,
Yeah.
bring everybody up to date. You mentioned a couple of things, but I don't think, and I know because I've read all of the documents, but I don't think people would have a really good idea everything you've done to now set things in order and make things right again. So let's.
Yeah, and before you start with that, Jennifer, let's just let the audience know our firm has taken this. Her parental rights have been terminated. And Maryland does not by statute have a reunification or reinstatement statute, as some states do. But we're trying anyway, because of the great things that Jennifer is now doing. And the position that they put her in, they told her, go do these things. And before she could do these things, they terminate her rights. And now she's done things and she's just blossoming. Jennifer, tell us the things that you've been doing, that you're doing, and you even plan to do in the future.
Okay, well, as I said before, I successfully completed 2 Mommy and Me programs.
And
When
the big thing is, are you clean? Everyone wants to know.
Yeah,
For how long?
I've been clean since May of 2020.
Wow, almost 3 years now.
Yep.
Awesome. So go ahead. What else?
While I was in the second Mommy and Me program, I worked in the daycare. I love children, so I got to be around children. I didn't have mine. So after that, I completed intensive outpatient. I completed DBT, like dialectical behavioral therapy, which the court had suggested I do. So I completed that. I volunteered for the city of Rockville. I've tried Toastmasters. I'm sorry, I'm a horrible speaker, so I'm trying to get better at that. And that was recommended that I do that. I've got a job at Elevate Recovery, which is a program it's a dual diagnosis program for people with mental health and addiction. So I'm a behavioral tech there. So I go from one end of the spectrum to the next. So that's a good feeling. And then I plan on speaking for Arise and Flourish, which is a nonprofit program. We bring meetings into the school and tell our stories to try to help the kids understand how bad life can get when you have the problems that we've had.
Wow. All of these things, and we're talking about a fundamental right. Does anyone see any reason why this mom cannot parent her own children? And say
you have a home now, right? You have
that,
your own place that you support and you take care of, and
yes,
Yeah,
I am my own.
where are you living?
I live in Rockville, Maryland.
I mean, are you living with your mom? Are you living in a home? And what is,
I live by myself in a townhouse that I own.
so there's no reason why your kids can't come back home to you?
Not that I can tell.
May I ask a quick question? How did it start, the drugs?
The drugs started. I've had self-esteem issues and, my mental health issues. I've lost my brother in 2007. I've lost my best friend 2 years before that. Just everything was just too much, and I was not hanging out with a good crowd of people.
Okay.
And unfortunately, I made the wrong decisions.
And you've lived up to that. It's nothing that you're trying to deny or hide from. Now, Linda, you didn't take this sitting down, all of these injustices. Talk about some of the things that you've done during this whole ordeal outside of reaching us. You've done some things.
Oh, yes, I have been a strong advocate for my kids who are in school, and I'm still an advocate for Jennifer. I have contacted all these delegates. The senator wrote a letter to President Biden, just wrote a letter to our new governor in Maryland, and no one seems to answer me. They just totally ignore all my letters and all my phone calls.
Now, Biden's administration actually wrote you back, didn't he?
Yes, well, they forwarded my letter to another agency, and that agency gave me a whole long list of people and agencies to call, which I had already done that before. But there was one, they said to contact the I think human health, the state constituent services. So I sent a letter out to them, which is probably about my 50th letter that I've sent out to different people.
Wow. Now, one thing, when we're dealing with children and you all are fighting to get your children back, this is an injustice. What people tend not to realize, Dr. Weeks and Mr. Jacobs and the people at CPS, is that children grow up. They grow up to be adults, and adults usually tend to be very inquisitive and want to know what happened. Jennifer, I'm going to start with you. Riley, Austin, they're going to be adults one day, and they may see this show. Talk to them right now. What would you say to them? If they, let's assume that you never talk to them again, but you want to give them a message today, 10 years, 15 years from now, what would you tell them?
I would tell them that I love them very much, and I think about them every day. I wake up in the morning and I say good morning to both of them. At night, I say good night to both of them. And then I'm very sorry for everything that I've done and all the pain that I've caused them and the trauma. And I'm continuing to fight for you because I love you and I want to be with you. And I know I just want to be a family again. And I have so much guilt and shame for everything that I've done. My heart's broken, and my mom and my dad both don't get to see you, and they love you very much. And my dad, grandpa, doesn't have much time because he has Parkinson's and dementia and his memory's going. And we've tried to reach out and have a Zoom visit, so grandpa can see you guys before he doesn't remember anything. And I've sent presents to you, and I don't even know if you all have received them. I want you to know that I love you and I did not abandon you, and that I've been fighting for you, and I'm continuing to fight. And that is one of my strongest reasons for staying clean. It's been hard because, mostly drug addicts, when we feel pain, we don't want to feel that. We don't want to feel hurt, and we go back to drugs. But I refuse to do that. I want, and I hope one day that I will get to see them again. I will get to see you, Riley, and you, Austin, again. And I want to be there for you, and I want to be clean. I don't want you to see me as just a junkie that left you and didn't care.
And we're going to make sure that this is preserved and they get to see this. We're hoping that the courts grant our petition and that we can get you all reunited. But if not, we're going to make sure. Now, Linda, this is your time. What would you say to your grandchildren?
I would say, I miss you both. I love you very much. And especially for the little girl who used to sit in bed with me and watch Sesame Street and little children's programs, and we'd sing together. I'd read her books because she loved to hear me read. And that, Riley, I've not forgotten you. And I will show you every letter that I've ever written to try to get you back. And it hasn't been successful up to this point. I just miss them so much. They were my life. I mean, I took them everywhere, especially the little girl. She was in preschool and I took her there, and to little gym and to art class and music class. We were just all over the place. But yet CPS can take them away from me because I'm 76 years old. I guess I'm not a fit person to watch these kids.
Can I add something?
Yes, please.
I've also been keeping a journal for both of my children. So pretty much every day I write an entry of how I'm feeling, just updates. So hoping one day they will read it so they know that they were not forgotten and they will not ever be forgotten. And I want them to I hope one day that they will be able to read that.
And they
Got
will.
another question. Have you all considered sharing your story with the media at all?
Well, that's
I've tried. I've tried. Believe me, I haven't missed anything. I called all the TV stations. I tried, called the Washington Post. I've tried. Believe me, that was one of the first things I was trying to do. And as I said before, nobody answers me. Nobody gets back to me.
What about city paper?
I've tried everything. There isn't anything that I've missed.
Okay.
Really. I mean, my whole life was dedicated since these kids left to trying to get this out into the public. And I have not succeeded.
Mm-hmm.
This is going to be our first opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
I've said before that the threat is not these, the media tries to make it seem like these boys in hoodies are a threat to society. They're not. It's men in ties, suits and ties. It's these people that we give authority and power. They're the threat. The people who we put in place to carry out justice are the very ones who are denying justice. And in this case, we have, I'll say it, CPS, we have courts, we have attorneys. They failed you all. The system in and of itself, as I always said, it's like marriage. It's a beautiful institution, but the people who come into it destroy the institution. They give, one songwriter said, they give love a bad name. They give our judicial system a bad name because they're not carrying out the laws. We just read the laws. There's no reason why Jennifer's parental rights should be taken away. And even if you try to conclude and say, well, maybe, there's no reason why her mother's rights should have been taken away. None. John, I'm gonna let you have the last word.
Well, no. I don't think I want the last word in a sense. I want to go back to what the Lubin ladies have said. That is, they shared what they would want to say to these children. And they've mentioned, I guess, Charlie, his name, your husband?
My husband, Charlie, yes.
Yeah. And you said he's having some memory problems, but I recall reading somewhere in all of the documentation that he hasn't forgotten them. And what does he say about them to you?
He hasn't forgotten about them because we have pictures of the kids all around his room. But he gets very confused. Like he said to Jennifer the other day when we were leaving, he said to her, give the kids a hug and kiss from me. So he has these periods of memory where he actually thinks that the kids are still with Jennifer.
Well, maybe he's just predicting the future.
We hope so. We can only hope.
So he clearly remembers them. They're
Oh,
still
yes.
really a part of his life too. So there's the both of you and him. You know, whatever he might be slipping here and there, they're still right very much in the heart of things for him. And I think that's important to get out there as well.
Yes.
Right, and he used to play bingo, and this was when he first went there over 2 years ago. He used to play bingo, and every time he won bingo, he was so excited because he got bingo points, and he would collect them, and then they'd have a store once a month, and he'd go in there and he'd get little coloring books for the kids and crayons and these little stuffed animals, and he was so excited to do all that for the children. But see, now that his memory is getting bad, he doesn't even want to play bingo. I don't think he can concentrate on it.
But he remembers them.
He does remember them.
That's important. On that note.
All righty. We're going to do all that we can. Again, whether it's through the legal system or whether it's through our resources that we have. And I would really like Dr. Weeks and her husband to see this, because how can you watch this and turn a blind eye to it? I just can't imagine that happening. Stay hopeful. Jennifer, continue doing what you're doing. You've done an amazing job. I'm sure people are going to watch this and get hope just from knowing that you've overcome all of this. And Linda, thank you for being such a supporting mother and grandmother. And I'm sure that I know your daughter loves you. I know your grandchildren loves you. And we are fighting for this family to be reunited.
And thank you for letting us tell our story.
Definitely.
Thank you.
All righty. I'm going to let you all go and then we're going to wrap up. And I'll talk to you all soon. Okay.
Okay, thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Look.
Bye.
Thank you.
Oh, that's tough. What are your thoughts, Dr. Cheney?
There's some parts of this story sounds just like the person down Texas. I believe that's where it was from.
Anthony Dennison, right?
Yeah, it's almost as if the government has somebody in mind for these children.
It seems that way, right?
Yeah, and I hate to get into race, but they're young white children. You got a young white male, you got a young girl, and they are prime folk to have, along with other people.
Talk
But
about
nevertheless,
that.
that's reality here.
Well, yeah, talk about that some more for the people who might be thinking that. Elaborate a little bit more. I don't want you to just gloss over that. What do you mean?
It's probably very difficult to get children like that.
Oh,
There's scarcity.
so
Yes.
so what you're saying is her children now are a hot commodity, and once when they found a boy and a girl,
It's perfect.
they said these children are not going back to these. Like John was saying, and I think one of the Lubins said that as soon as they knew that the mom and dad was on drugs, they had plans for these children, and they were like, they're not getting back. They're not going to ever get over this drug problem.
The other thing is, how did they really find out that they were doing drugs? You look at what's going on in a lot of these households in certain parts of our community, and nobody does anything about what's going on in their households. These kids are getting shot and carried on, and there's some kind of connection between what's going on in the streets and what's going on in their homes. Not to blame totally the homes, but something is happening.
Yeah.
But these kids would be prime interest to people.
Yeah, and it seems as though the government wants that. Can
And
you
it's similar
imagine
to what they wanted with those other little children.
the 5 in Texas? I have to call Anthony to see, because that was outside of our jurisdiction. And I know our show raised some eyebrows. I got contacted by one of the new Black Panther members there, but we have to follow up. John, now I can give you the last word.
The injustice is there, and it's a real shame that there's the injustice against Jennifer as somebody who has gotten her life together, right? That is what we strive for. We understand people have problems, they have this, they have that. Okay, and when they can't or won't right the ship, then okay. Then it is the appropriate avenue for the government to take action to protect the children. Fine. But Jennifer has done everything and more,
Yeah.
and yet she's been discounted. Her mother, Linda, and Charlie at one point in time were taking care of the children, and now, yeah, this whole idea of age discrimination, even though none of the documentation, as far as I recall, has talked about, well, we have real concerns that these people are just too unable to take care of the children. I didn't really see much of that issue being made to say, oh yeah, court, well, yeah, there's that thing that guy Salon read about, yeah, they should go to near relatives, but these near relatives are in fact incapable, not because of maybe the drug or mental health issue, but simply because, yeah, they're in their 70s, they have their problems, and now you've got these very young children and they can't keep up with them. I didn't see any of that.
Yeah.
So,
And even if that was the unspoken reason, like I said in the petition, I mean, our president is older than they are. So how can you run a country, but you can't even run a house with little kids, right? If that's the reason that they wanted to hold on to, which is why I don't think they would ever say that.
so,
I think
and so
Dr.
they're not going to say, indeed, they haven't said anything, which may be the biggest sort of flag up the pole, that they sort of are almost pretending like Linda isn't there. Because
Yeah.
the clear argument has been made, well, why aren't these children there? That's what the law says. You go to the nearest relative. And so, no, nothing about that. So what is it? And well, this is the travesty of the justice issue. And so now we have to see about being able to get into court and really have an in-depth hearing on this and bring these people and put it to them. And that's
And if the judges won't do it, let's hope that the fictive parents do it. Let's hope that Dr. Weeks and Mr. Jacobs step up and say, look, we saw you here. We agree there's no reason why you can't parent your children. Let's work something out. Maybe they can have 2 sets of parents. But to cut them off totally.
And this is one of the things that, again, the people listening or watching this should be aware. Jennifer has made clear that she's not expecting anybody to hand her back those 2 kids tomorrow.
Right.
That's it. She's very clearly laid out, and we've put it in our petitions, that she is willing to go through whatever court process for however long, at whatever gradual place of reconnection and reunification is necessary, that could easily last a year, 2 years, or more.
Yeah, that has to be made clear. She's not wanting to rip these children out of the care of the parents who have them now into her home and then cut these people off. No, that's not her intention. It's a slow, gradual reunification. I think at this point, she just wants to see them and talk to them. At the very least.
And so that should be enough for CPS and the court to say, all right, we will be involved and we will be watching this process. The children will be protected, and that's what the law requires, right? What is this is the last word is going to you. What does the Supreme Court say on this point?
John, did you say that, well, one of you said that well, maybe they said it, that the little children are going through some problems right now with the...
at one of the hearings, the adoptive parents made mention that the kids, that I think the daughter was having temper tantrums.
Was acting out.
Yeah, that was
She
at one of the...
wasn't acting out prior to that.
No, I don't think so.
What does the Supreme Court say should happen in these kinds of situations?
It should be a reunification plan that's put in effect. And they're not doing that for whatever reason.
They didn't even try to do that.
And so my point is, let's say that all the people in CPS in the court system, they're corrupt. These fictive parents, let's hope they are not corrupt. So they don't even need to involve CPS. Let the two sides get together. Let them find a therapist on their own and say, look, therapist, we want to be able to be a part, these kids to be a part of both of our families where there's no confusion. Let's keep these corrupt people out. They can do that. There's nothing in the law stopping Dr. Weeks and Mr. Jacobs from contacting the Lubins and coming together and coming up with some sort of plan on their own. Now, it would take a very strong, moral, upright group of people, which I'm hoping Dr. Weeks and Mr. Jacobs are, to do that. But to just cut the biological parents out completely, and you saw her there and how healthy she is now, I don't see why. We're over our hour. Glad to be back, you all. Glad to see you all.
Hey, excellent, excellent.
We got some shows lined up. And thank you all for being patient with us, our listening audience, our watching audience. We're back. All righty, you all.
Raring to go.
Good seeing you all again. All righty.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for watching our video. For experienced legal services in Washington, D.C., Alabama, and Washington State, visit our website at remuslaw.com or call us at 1-833-329-1799.